What's up, scholars? Welcome back to Proofs Part 2. My name is Ms. Atkin.
And my name's Lisa.
So last time we talked about proving triangles were congruent using two shortcuts, side, 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 and side, angle, side, because it was really annoying to have to write out that all 6 parts of one triangle were congruent to all 6 parts of another. So we're like, let's do some shortcut action. Lisa, what shortcuts do we have for today?
So today we're going to go ahead and do angle, side, angle, and angle, angle, side. We do not have an ASS here in geometry, guys, so we only have 2 more examples.
No buts allowed, no ASS, but there will be SSS, SAS, ASA, and AAS. Perfect.
All right, so let's get into our next 2 shortcuts. So today we're going to look at angle, side, angle, and angle, angle, side. So if you guys remember, we're trying to prove that these 2 triangles are indeed congruent. And how do we get there? What are we going to have to do? As I said in our last video, I think it's always useful to go ahead and look at your given information. If you have your given information, might as well use it. So first thing that we're going to want to do after our given information is plan. How are we going to get from given to proven? So the first thing we can look at is that angle L and angle P are right angles. So what should we do? Let's draw this into our picture. Our next given information says.
So that means angle L and angle P are congruent, right, Lisa? Because they're both right angles.
Correct. It means they are the same value.
Yeah, all right angles are 90, so like they're clearly congruent. Okay, cool.
So our next piece of given information, Ms. Atkins, says that point M is the midpoint of angle P. So what does that mean? If we remember back to our other lessons, when we have a midpoint, it means it broke those segments into equal values. So Ms. Atkins, which 2 segments did it break into equal values?
Well, if it's in the middle of segment LP, that means this half must be congruent to that half. So we could talk about LM, segment LM, being congruent to segment MP because that's what a midpoint does.
So that's another step in our proving that these 2 triangles are congruent. And now, okay, so we've used our 2 pieces of given information. So Lisa, how do we get to that last step? So let's look back to our picture, guys, and let's see if we can find anything else. I do see that we created an X with these 2 triangles.
Yeah, good call.
And when we create an X, what do we have, Ms. Atkin?
We've got vertical angles, baby.
Woohoo! So vertical angles means that they're equal. And I think usually when I'm working through my shortcuts, every time I complete one step, I'll look back at my picture to see if I have a shortcut completed yet. So if I see that I have maybe angle, I'll be like, okay, is there a side that I can find here to finish that shortcut? And if you do that type of looking back to your picture every step, it'll just go ahead and show you whether or not you have completed the steps. And then finally, Ms. Atkin, if we proved these 3 things, we can see that we have angle, side, angle. So you look back, L and P are both right angles, LM and MP are equal, and M created vertical angles, so those are also equal.
All right, Lisa, so I see this is an angle and a side and an angle. Are we going to use angle, side, angle because we wrote it in this order? Like I found an angle first and then a side and then an angle? Or are we going to use angle, angle, side? Because that's also, we have 2 angles and a side. How do we pick which one it's going to be?
So we're actually going to go ahead and choose angle, side, angle because that's the order in which they are in our diagram or picture. So if we see we have an angle at the top or at the bottom, the side is in between those 2 angles, and finally the angle at the end. So we couldn't do angle, angle, side because they're both present, but we have to do it in the order that we see them in.
In the picture, cool. So you think it's time for our statements and reasons table?
I think we're ready.
All right, so let's do it.
All of our planning, we used all of our given information, and we're finally able to prove why these 2 triangles are congruent. So go ahead and write your statements in from your plan.
What should we start out with, Lisa?
I think we should start with our given information.
Awesome. We had angle L and angle P are right angles. And what did we conclude once we knew they were both right angles?
We saw that it means that they're right angles, so have equal value. And then we saw our next piece of given information.
Yeah, so we know they're congruent because they're both right angles. Right angles are congruent. I mean, it seems obvious that they're congruent because they're right angles, but that's just how proofs go. We got to be really explicit with every step.
Building your facts into your case.
Yeah, exactly. So let's write our next given. I like that idea. M is the midpoint. And what did we conclude once we knew that M was the midpoint?
We concluded that segments LM and MP were congruent because that is what a midpoint does, breaks those into equal value. So definition of midpoint.
Yeah, exactly. That's what a midpoint does. And then what came next?
And then we saw that we have vertical angles. So angle M was equal to angle M. And that was what finally made us see that we had angle side angle.
Very good. And what were we trying to prove?
We were trying to prove that triangle LNM was congruent to triangle POM.
Whoops, I wrote that backwards and I got excited. Triangle LMN is congruent to triangle POM because of side, nope, not side, angle side. What am I writing here?
Angle side angle.
Angle side angle.
So let's go ahead and start our second example. So once again, it seems like we are given information and we want to prove that these two triangles are indeed congruent. So first, let's go ahead and mark into our triangles the given information. So it says that angle J is congruent to angle M. So that we can start that as part of our plan. Remember, planning is very efficient when you want to go ahead and be able to prove that these two triangles are congruent. Our next piece of given information says that angle JKL, let's go in that order, and angle MKL are congruent. So that means that two little angles at the bottom are equal to each other. All right, so let's write that into our next set of the plan. So now let's look back at our picture. So it seems like we have two angles, but we don't yet quite have a full shortcut. So I'm looking at my picture and it looks like segment KL is a shared side between the two. So that means that KL is equal to itself. And if we remember, that is the reflexive property. So, okay, so this is the equal side. And after we've gone through our steps, it looks like we have angle, angle, side in that order. So we can say that KL is equal to each other. All right, Lisa, so have we completed a shortcut? Yes, we have. And since we have completed our shortcut, we are able to prove that these two triangles are congruent. So let's go ahead and start our statements and reasonings chart to finish this proof off. So for our first step, our first part of our plan, our given information. Second part of our statements will also be our given information. And then for number 3, we went ahead and had to look back at our picture, but we saw that that was equal to itself, so we realized it was the reflexive property. And finally, we were able to prove that triangle JKL was indeed congruent to triangle MKL due to angle, angle, side. Once again, remember it's angle, angle, side because it is in that order from our picture. All right, so let's do a quick review. If you remember from our last lesson, we talked about side, angle, side, and side, side, side. Today we went ahead and talked about angle, side, angle, and angle, angle, side. So a very useful tip when doing triangle proofs is to plan. If you plan, it might cause for organization. It'll make your statements and reasonings much easier. So we started our plan with our given information. And we talked about our midpoint. So just remember that a midpoint splits those two parts into equal. So it splits those two into equal value. In this case, it was LM and MP. And then we finally looked back at our picture, saw that we had vertical angles. And remember that vertical angles makes those two angles congruent to each other. So we were finally able to prove that these two triangles were congruent due to angle, side, angle. For our second example, we went ahead and did something very similar. We did our plan, began with our given information. We looked back at our picture and saw that we didn't have a shortcut quite yet. So we saw that the two triangles shared a side being KL. And since that side equaled itself, we remembered to include our reflexive property. So just remember, reflexive property is something equaling itself or something being itself. And finally, for this example, we were able to prove that triangle JKL was congruent to triangle MKL due to angle, angle, side.
And why was this one not angle, side, angle, Lisa?
So we have to put our example in the order that we see it in the picture. So in this case, we have to go from the sides to the side, from the corner to the corner to the side, instead of jumping right over to that side in a second. There's no direction there and you're just flying through the air. So you have to go from J to K to L to the segment.
And what were the four shortcuts that we can use to prove triangles are congruent?
We can use side, side, side. We can use side, angle, side. We can use angle, angle, side, and angle, side, angle. So just remember your four shortcuts, 4, 4, 4.
Will we ever have this as a shortcut?
No, we have no buts in geometry.
There's no buts allowed. Nicely done, scholars. You made it to the end of proof part 2. If you want some more information for why those shortcuts work, totally come talk to me. I would love to show you the proof of why those shortcuts work. But you can also just take me at my word and take Lisa at her word and take us at her word. That's whatever you want to do. I've been Miss Atkin.
And I've been Lisa, and thank you for listening to us today, guys.